I did not. Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking around. If you haven't and you're just joining us, go back and watch, well, after this, go back and watch the episode 13 recap of the season finale, and then come back here because guess what? Not only are we going to recap episode 13 for a little bit, but we are also going to talk about the entire season and the character development that we've seen. Plus, we're joined by the executive producer of the show. So join the live chat right now and stick around with.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Sve. You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Toma un asiento para
Oh,
platicarte lo que
yes.
siento. Todo es verídico, no es nada lo que
JT, is this
invento.
you?
Envuelto en lo más
actually
violento.
intoxicated.
Lo llevo dentro de mi
Okay.
padre, es que viene el ejemplo. Sin temor, yo lo enfrento a mis circunstancias.
Okay, so what you guys are listening to is our great friend JT Campos, who was just on with us. Who's right here on the couch still. What's up?
Boaz himself.
Boaz himself, hitting the tunes and getting into the producer booth right there. He actually sings a chorus on this song. What's the song called?
Tiempo.
Tiempo, and
Boaz had to do
it's
some
out
tiempo.
already?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and where can people find it?
Spotify, iTunes. Just go to intoxicated.net. INTOXSICKHATED.net. Check out the music. Did that for the man, the myth, the legend right there.
Very good.
There you go.
Very good.
And that man, myth, and legend is executive producer David T. Friendly. Do you want the
Correct.
T in
I
there?
like the T.
Perfect. David T. Friendly is here with us. He's the one who made it all happen, guys. He
Yes,
is the
the
connection
man.
to the
Mastermind.
network. Put the show basically in the hands of Fox 21 USA. But before we get into asking him about how this all happened, which I'm really itching to, what's up, guys? You can find me, Leslie Ambriz, on Instagram and Twitter at In Less Than No Time, so check me out.
And I'm Candice Cruz, and you can find me on all of my social media at Candice R. Cruz.
I'm David T. Friendly. You can find me at David Friendly or at David T. Friendly on Twitter.
And I'm Ashley Allan. You can find me on all social media at Ashley Reed Allen.
Perfect.
almost said
And for
Twitter and
those of you
Instagram.
who don't know where you are right now, you are watching the entire season 2 recap of USA's Queen of the South. We are here chatting. We've got David. David, I have to ask, how did this process happen? Did you read La Reina del Sur and then go talk to USA? What was that like?
Yeah, it was an incredible journey, actually. As a producer, you need a lot of perseverance, and I had been aware of the book, and I read it, and I thought it would make a great series in English. There was, of course, the telenovela, but I thought this could be a great drama in English for English-speaking Latinos and all kinds of people. And I tracked down the agent for Arturo Perez Reverte, who wrote the book, and I pushed very hard to get the rights, and it took about a year of calling the agent in Spain. Every Friday I would call her. And finally she just said, okay, we're tired of you. Give us your best offer. And I had brought the book to a friend of mine, David Madden, who was running Fox TV Studios, and I made a big pitch for it. And he said, if you can get the rights, we'll buy it for you. And they negotiated the deal, and that's how we got started. And then we got these wonderful writers, Josh Miller and Mark Fortin, to write the pilot. And we shot the entire pilot in Mexico City, which was quite an experience, an amazing experience for me. And then came back, and fortunately USA picked it up, and that's how it happened.
And I read on the Hollywood Reporter that not only was USA interested in it, but a ton of other networks were calling you and ready to get this show on their network. What was the decision for USA?
Our timing was pretty good, you know. I think we had the right idea at the right time, which is a big part of, if you're going to be successful, you have to have some luck and you have to have a good idea, and we had both. USA was the perfect network for this because they were in the middle of transitioning from what they called blue sky television to gray sky television. Blue sky, happy characters, very warmly lit, upbeat stories. You know their shows.
Of course.
And then came Mr. Robot and our show, which are more gray skies, a little darker, but characters that you still care about underneath. And we were very fortunate that they were essentially rebranding the network, and they wanted a show like ours, and that's where, again, where you have to get sort of lucky and have the right timing, which we did.
And not only is the network extremely supportive, but you guys have a huge fan base right now. And how involved are they in everything that's happened within the last few seasons?
It's crazy. I mean, honestly, I was saying earlier, people are watching television in a different way right now. So you have the broadcast going on, and then in your left hand, you have your phone and you have Pound Queen of the South, and you're watching this Twitter feed as the show is going on. It's like you're getting your own market research as the show goes on. And they're just, I mean, half the time I look at it and I say, who's telling these people to say this stuff?
Yeah.
They're so excited and they're so into it, and they notice every detail and they know all the backstory on the characters. I mean, we have really loyal fans, and they're funny and they're interested, they're engaged, and they're very vocal. And we listen to them. I mean, we pay a lot of attention to what's being said.
Have they kind of flipped the script in terms of being in the writer's room, where you've seen something didn't really work out with them, so you've completely switched that idea up?
You know, I mean, I suppose if something happened that the audience just said, you know, in large numbers, we hate this, don't do this, we might be influenced. But, you know, because of the schedule, our scripts are all written and done, and the shows are completed before, you know, this process starts. But it could have an impact on season 3 if we saw something that was regularly complained about or people didn't like. You know, that could affect the direction. I mean, a lot of that is determined by our showrunner, Natalie Shagdez, who you've met, who is incredible and has a firm grip on our direction.
What is that partnership like with Natalie, just working together and making this show the success that it is?
Well, for me, it's a dream come true. I mean, I'm the non-writing EP, so I don't write on the show, but I come in and out of the writer's room. My office is literally adjacent to the writer's room, so I can hear them all day. And many non-writing EPs don't get to go in the room, but Natalie trusts me, and I don't abuse it. I'll go in for a little while. I don't know how they do it. They sit there from literally 10 in the morning till 6 at night, just cracking story. You need a very focused ability to concentrate and be creative at the same time. And we have this amazing room. Everybody in there is incredibly talented. They all get along great. I mean, you hear a lot about shows where there's discord in the writer's room. This one doesn't like this one. We can't get them to go home at night. They're hanging out. They're having wine together at the end of the week. It's like, go home. It's enough already.
Yeah, we've noticed the camaraderie between everybody,
Yeah.
cast and crew, especially with the writers.
And they all help each other, which I love. I particularly love that. I tell the funny story where we had an episode where there's a poker game in Chicago, and I happen to play poker, and so does Ryan Onan, who was on the show last week. And our writer on that episode didn't know the first thing about how people play poker, so we took Tina Mabry, who was the writer of that episode, down to the Commerce Casino in Commerce and made her play like low stakes poker in an actual live game.
My God.
So that's kind of like the nature of the relationships. Like, we're going to take you, you're going to learn, and it really helped her, you know, be able to write the scene.
So it's more like a family, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
no, it really is. It is like a family. And everybody hangs out together, and tonight there'll be a party to watch the finale, and everybody will be together. It's really nice.
Commerce Casino, it's now a landmark.
Right, for Queen of the South right there, guys.
Everyone's going to flood up. We're not paid by Commerce to say that. Wow, that's incredible. And I just want to ask a little bit about your journey, just going into being an EP. You started off as a journalist for LA Times and Newsweekly? Newsweek.
Yeah.
What sparked that change that made you go, you know what, I don't just want to write about entertainment and business, I want to actually be the one making things happen?
Well, it was literally that sort of epiphany. I was very fortunate to be hired by the LA Times to cover the movie business expressly, and I was going around town meeting all these young executives and people in big offices at studios and seeing this creative process, and at a certain point I just determined that I would be more comfortable being in the business than writing about it. I'd done it for 9 years, so it wasn't like it was something I'd done a lot of, and I felt like, you know, I was a pretty good print journalist in my day, but that my real calling was producing. And at that time, I was very, very lucky. Ron Howard and Brian Grazer were starting Imagine Entertainment, and I was about their second employee or something, 1987. And I was a vice president of development. That was my first job, and my roommate at the time was a guy that I went to college with at Northwestern, and he was writing a script called The Burbs, and I asked him if I could read it, and I read it, and I brought it in, and that was the first movie I got to work on. It had Tom Hanks and a wonderful cast, Carrie Fisher, a bunch of other people. And so that was the sort of how it started. I started at Imagine and spent a number of years there, rose to president of the company, and then eventually started producing on my own.
That's incredible.
And then
What was
here
that
we are
journey?
with Queen of the South.
Right.
What was that transition like for you personally?
Whoa, it was really difficult at the beginning because I really didn't know what I was doing. I thought that by writing about the business that I actually understood the business, and they're two very, very different things. And I was under a lot of pressure immediately to deliver, and I wasn't doing a very good job. When I started, I almost got fired. Talked my way out of being fired, and then a week later I found the script for Backdraft that Ron Howard ended up directing, and I was kind of off and running then.
Yeah.
But it was a good question because it was a difficult transition. It was not easy.
Dang. Look at, I love
Right?
hearing people's like stories of coming into
Especially here in
where
Hollywood.
they are. Yeah. they're-
Well, speaking of transitions, though,
We're great at these.
we can talk a little bit about the journey throughout, season 1 of Queen of the South into season 2 and the growth of all these characters.
Specifically more so
yeah,
Teresa
Teresa
and
and
Camila, who are
Camila.
our main leads.
Yeah, well, the first season is really just about survival.
Right.
That's the whole thing. It's like the pilot ends, where am I? Oh, welcome to America. And then she's in that flannel shirt for 13 hours. And, and with that horrible cot. And the question of the season is she going to survive?
Yeah.
The second season is much more about there can only be one queen, which we sort of deliver on that tonight. And then hopefully next year you're going to get to see her really rising up to her destiny.
One of our favorite parts that we continually talked about throughout the entire season was all the symbolism that you guys have on this show.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about the white dress and your own interpretation
Oh yeah,
and everything.
it's fantastic. I love that you guys are sparking conversations with everything within the script, and I know some of it may be intentional, some of it not, and that's just how life ends up happening. But I love that you guys are using that as like a platform.
I want to tell you about something that happened that the audience probably would never know. There'd be no way for them to know. But in the opening of the pilot, she comes off the helicopter, and we go in on these beautiful gold shoes that are actual Gucci shoes, and they were very expensive. They were $1,000. So normally you'd have like 5 or 6 pairs. There was only one pair, and they're missing.
Oh no!
Maybe you can help us find the Gucci shoes.
No!
They disappeared.
So you're gonna have to recreate them eventually.
I don't know.
We shall
Let's
see.
Yes.
Wow, that's intense.
Maybe we'll have to like get a look-alike or something.
It's like a Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta find the shoe.
Instead of finding the girl, find the shoe.
Find the shoe.
A lot of time and energy was spent in season 1 on getting the look of the future queen. With the hair pulled back and the white suit and everything, and that was a lot of different looks. But I think she looks great. I think about Elise, she can look great in jeans and a flannel shirt, or in a beautiful white designer dress. She can carry it all. It's amazing. And she runs like a deer. Ever notice how she runs in the show?
Yes.
It's like an Olympic athlete. It's
She
unbelievable.
sprints. I mean, I guess I would too if I was running for my life.
But she has great form when she runs.
Right, yeah.
I can't run like that.
She knew. She was like, I'm gonna have to run a lot for this show. Let me practice in front of the mirror for a bit.
She has great commitment, though, to detail like that. Like, if she's going to run, she learns exactly how to run. If she's going to, if she's going to be reading something, she wants it to be precise and accurate. She does her homework.
Well, that's good to know that the actors have that type of freedom on the set to fully commit to their role or their scene that they're doing.
I mean, you even shared a little bit of like your character, that little secret that you held as Boaz,
Right.
with even the handkerchief.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want me to say?
Do you want to tell the story of it, just in case people didn't get to hear it in the last one? I thought that was a really amazing story.
I just carried my brother's blood on me. His blood's on my hands. Wiping the blood off with the handkerchief when I walked away. Episode 4, I just figured I'm gonna keep my brother with me, and that's the way I do that. He's with me the whole way through. with his blood being on my hands on the
Yeah.
handkerchief. Carried that on me.
Were there any other cast members that you know of that had something similar like that?
Not that I know, but you know that little skull that I give James? That's actually my tiger's eye skull.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I brought that set and was like, I'm gonna go ahead and toss a little bit of, you give me her head type kind of.
Right.
Dallas is
Yeah.
yours.
It's a nice touch.
That is that
But another fun thing was when Yancey Arias came to us and said he wanted to sing on the show. He has
Yes.
a beautiful singing
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah,
He does.
And I was like, oh boy, here we go, another actor wants to sing. And guess what? He's really good.
Yeah.
You know? He was on Broadway, and everybody brings different things. Like maybe the audience doesn't know this, but Veronica, before she was an actress, was a famous, pretty well-known choreographer
I didn't know
in
that.
Mexico. Pretty big deal. And one of the funniest things that happened in the sequence where she's dancing with Epifanio, there was a lot of work that had to be done prior to that, and they would rehearse at her apartment in Dallas, because we shoot in Dallas. And here is a professional choreographer, very, very respected, and of course, Joaquin, who I love, is like trying to tell her how they're going to do the dance.
She's
We
like,
love that. She's so classy. She just said, yes, of course, Joaquin, of course.
so you have such a dynamic and grounded cast. How was the casting process for this show to find your two queens and then create the world around them?
Well, it was cast by this incredible casting team, Junie and Libby, who have done all kinds of shows for HBO, and we worked with them very closely. And it was a really intense process. I mean, trying to find Camilla, we looked at literally hundreds of actors, and when Veronica came in and she read with Elise, it was pretty obvious to me. Some people weren't so sure. There was a lot of discussion, but we found the perfect Camilla. So, I mean, she had a complete commitment. One of the things I always tell her that I was so impressed by is actors come in and they haven't memorized their lines. They've got the lines like down, and they're looking at the dialogue. She had memorized like 5 pages of dialogue, never needed to look at it. It was like, oh, this is Camilla.
Yeah.
You know, this is great. And it's been that way with every actor. They're all incredibly committed. They're so professional. You know, you said earlier, I came out of movies, and there's a funny thing that happens on the set a lot where you'll have an actor say, line, you know, when they forget a line, and the script supervisor gives them the line. Our cast is the most phenomenal thing. Everybody knows their lines all the time. And it's just, they're so focused and they're so into it. It just makes the process so much smoother, and they respect the words because every word is carefully chosen. And I think that's great for the writers to see. And another thing that the audience might find interesting is the writer that writes the episode comes down to Dallas and is there for the shooting of that episode as a producer, which was Natalie's idea. And it's great because then actors can turn to the writer and say, what does this mean? Or how should I say this? Or I don't like this line. Rare.
Right.
It does happen. Yeah.
And those
So
lines
it's a
are
team effort.
intense, yeah.
Yeah.
Even speaking of Veronica, like her lines, every one of Camila's quotes, I feel people could slap on
Yeah.
a T-shirt or
Yeah.
stitch on something inspirational because they're all super deep, have so much meaning in them, and it's crazy just to see that the writers are putting in a really great.
There was a
amount of
line
work.
tonight that was blowing up on Twitter, which it actually goes to Pote, and he says, your heart will kill you faster than a bullet. That is like being, I mean, it's
So true.
It's all over the Twitter sphere.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Yes, there
No,
it
I
is.
loved that so much. That was a great finale.
Yeah.
Finale
I mean, I
line.
have to give credit to that to our showrunner, Natalie. She really put that whole thing together and paid off all the loose ends. And, you know, we were watching at home. My wife, who is the supervising editor on the show, happens to be my wife. She's in charge of all the editing.
That's amazing. It literally.
Super talent. Came out of the film business, cut Pretty Woman and The Proposal and American Pie, and now is the supervising editor on Queen of the South. I said, you're going to take one for the team here, one for the family. So we were watching the show together tonight a little earlier. And, you know, she just, we were looking at the final sequence. You know, can I say what happens there? People
People have already seen it. Yeah.
And she's on a boat, and, you know, we're heading into the horizon.
Yeah.
And the beautiful theme comes up, which is, you know, Giorgio Moroder and Rainey Shockney, our composers, who did an incredible job. And we got goosebumps. We're like, oh, we're sailing off into season 3. It was great ending, and really, really a lot of credit to our writers' room, and in particular Natalie for marshaling all that.
Yeah, it was such a gorgeous shot. I mean, the whole season has been gorgeous, but I really loved that this last episode was almost a culmination of all the storylines that were left open, yet leaves us with all new cliffhangers, which is always awesome to see.
And that's kind of what a finale should do.
Yeah.
It answers a lot of questions, but it leaves a lot of things open to the future, right?
Yeah.
It's important.
Couldn't have said it better. Some shows don't do this.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
True.
Or they leave you and then you're just like, okay.
The show is a great, I mean, there's a lot of great dramas out, but especially with this show, it's such a pioneer for, I feel like, to show networks that, a show with a lot of Latinos can still do great in the same way that with other people of color, whether it's Asian, Black, etc., it can still excel. You don't just need to have the token character. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think we were very hopeful that we would get that audience to embrace us. You know, it's all well and good to say we're doing something for the Latino community, but what was important to me, and certainly to Natalie and the rest of our team, is that it would be received with open arms and not compared negatively to the original telenovela, which we have great respect for. And the other thing that's kind of fascinating is the African American audience has embraced this show in a very big way, which I had, when I sold the show, I kept saying there's this sleeping giant out there, which is English-speaking Latino audiences. Maybe they heard Spanish their whole life, but now they speak English. They want a show in English. They want something that is well done. And then out of, like, God knows where, we got this huge African-American following, and one of the simplest explanations for that is that they particularly like the Scarface quality of the show. And so it's really resonating with them. And we get research after every season from the network that tells us who's watching, exactly who's watching and why. And I think we are doing very well with the Latino community, which makes me very proud. But I also spent a lot of my life working with African American stars. I did 3 movies with Martin Lawrence. I did a movie with Denzel Washington, Sam Jackson. I mean, most of my movies, for whatever reason, featured African American casts, and so that makes me very happy that we're connecting with that audience as well. So I don't think it's any one specific, targeted audience. It seems like the show is connecting with a lot of different types. And on Thursday nights, I'm sure you guys know this, we're the #1 show in cable for the 18 to 49-year-old demo.
That's amazing.
Well, that's kudos to you putting together a great team that can effectively put those emotions out there and it be true and for people to actually feel the sincerity of you guys. So with that being said, what would you say is like a big misconception that people have about your role as an EP?
Well, I have to say, it's hard to generalize, but many or some non-writing EPs, they don't even really get too involved in the creative process because they're packaging other shows and they all want to be like Dick Wolf and have like 9 shows on the air at once. I focus on, one project at a time. I read every script, I read every outline. I talk to Natalie about every character. I met and meet with every writer that comes on the show because it's our family, so if we're going to expand the family, I want to be involved in that. It is definitely, she has the deciding vote, but I'm very, very intimately involved in everything creative and all the production, and that's the only way I know how to work. I don't like to be an outsider in my own show. I want to be right in the middle of it. It's fun. It's much more fun that way.
Thanks for a great show. I mean, you guys have done amazing, and thank you so much, David, for joining us in studio today. And where can people find you on social media to stay up to date with any upcoming projects?
On Twitter at David T. Friendly, and I have a Friendly Films website, friendly-films.com, so you can see everything we're working on and new projects, and there's more stuff coming.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much for sticking around. Thank you to everyone in the live chat saying great show, that they loved it. I mean, you guys are the fans that are keeping the show on the air, that have resulted in it being season 3. Coming up soon. We'll release that date. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You can find me, Leslie Ambriz, on Instagram and Twitter at InLessThanNoTime. And be sure to share this video with your friends. Go on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, all of the above. You guys know what to do. If you're driving and you need something to listen to, turn off Spotify, turn off iTunes, download podcasts, and you can still listen to our lovely voices in your car while you're stuck in traffic if you're from Los Angeles. And you can also follow my lovely co-hosts on their social medias.
I would just want to say thank you to everyone that's been tuning in throughout the entire season for 13 episodes. We've loved the entire journey, and thank you so much, David, for creating such an incredible show that's given us all a voice.
We'll be back next June.
Yes. So you guys tune in next June. And again, my name is Candice Cruz. You can find me on all of my social media at Candice R. Cruz.
And I'm Ashley Allan, and I just want to thank my lovely co-host for bringing me in and accepting me. It's been so much fun joining this show, and again, thank you to you for joining us. And you guys can find me on all social media at Ashley Reed Allan.
And thank
And
you,
let's not
Mr.
forget
JT
our other
Campos, all the way from Texas.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. You can find me at JT Campos1 on Instagram and at Campos5 Joseph on Twitter.
And all of your
And
music.
check out his music.
And the music at intoxicated.net. INTOXSICKHATED.
There you
.net.
go.
Check it out.
Yes.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you guys so
Thanks,
much.
guys.
We'll see you next season.
See ya.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.